So please rise and join us in pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, Moines County Board of Supervisors, October 12th, 2021. Are there any changes to the tentative agenda? I have none. We have an agenda. Meet with department heads, elected officials. Sarah Doty, Moines County Payroll.
Good morning. Staying busy as normal, nothing new for me to report.
I see people need to get the timesheets or their
Yes.
payroll
I
records
will
to
be
you.
gone next Wednesday and I'm leaving Tuesday afternoon, so I will need everything submitted so I can have it done, so everybody can get paid.
But it's optional. If you don't do it, you don't need to get paid.
Well, I mean, if you would like a paycheck, it'd be a good option.
So, you have a choice.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Lisa Schaefer, Des Moines County Attorney.
Just staying busy and have a couple of things on the agenda.
Still any courtroom going on?
We're doing a trial setting conference as we speak. I chose to come here rather than do that. Chris is handling that, so we'll have trials next week. How many? We have no idea.
It's hard to miss one of these meetings, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Glad I got you in a good mood. Common Gerst, IT.
I just keep busy like always, but nothing to report.
Thanks, Colin. Des Moines County Sheriff, Kevin Glendenny.
Good morning. Things are going well at the sheriff's office. Doug's here, so he can cover the jail, and we had that active shooter drill today, so just so nobody's thrown off, we'll have a drill here, and we'll make plenty of announcements and hope for a successful and good learning opportunity today. We're working on a new record management system also for the sheriff's office and actually countywide for law enforcement. So here coming this week, we're gonna travel to some other sites that have some of the systems that we're looking at, and Colin and IT are gonna be involved, and we're all working together to figure out what the best system is. So as we work towards that, we'll keep the board informed as we figure out what we're gonna go with and hopefully move to.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Absolutely.
Terry Johnson, Des Moines County Auditor.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're just busy with getting ready for the city school election. So far, we have 58 absentee ballots that, as soon as our ballots arrive, we will get those mailed out. Absentee voting normally starts 20 days ahead of time, but for the smaller elections, it says whenever the ballots are available, our ballots will be delivered tomorrow. So Thursday, absentee voting in office should be in. I'll send out a news flash to the media, let them know for sure, but we're hoping that will all get started on Thursday.
Thanks, Terry. Chris Lee, Conservation.
Good morning. Had a big weekend this last weekend, had our big Halloween event in the park up there at the campground. We had about 400 people show up, which was great considering we didn't really advertise it very much at all. Great weather, great event. I think a lot of folks really had a lot of fun. We're looking forward to having it next year. So that was good. I should know the Nature Center is closed. We've gone about a week now without any internet service. Apparently CenturyLink has lost the check that we paid them for last month. And they
What?
Yeah. Well, I can confirm through our system that the check was written and sent, and they say, well, you haven't paid your bill. I said, yes, we have. And they said, well, we haven't got the check. We're shutting you off. And they shut us off. So we've been off for about a month, or about a week, I mean. And so we can't get anything done at the Nature Center. I got staff working out at the office right now, so.
Has the check been cashed? Hasn't it?
Yeah.
Thing lost.
Or lost in the mail.
So just, you
Yeah,
know,
one of the two.
keep adding to our internet woes at the Nature Center, but, so, anyway, until we get that resolved, Nature Center's gonna be closed during the day. But otherwise, I got here kinda early, I have a grant hearing, to go to, but, just kinda keeping on, and parks are busy, weather's pretty nice, and so, looking forward to things kinda winding down and us getting into the not so busy season, hopefully sometime in the near future, I guess, so. But the Halloween event was really great, and I gotta give credit to The volunteers, I mean, that was largely a volunteer organized event. You know, we just kind of asked what they needed us to do and we did it. We gotta thank the CERT team for coming out, they helped with parking, because that's kind of a logistical nightmare sometimes. And our camp host up there, she really was kind of the spearhead of all of that, so it's a really cool event and has now turned into our biggest campground event of the year.
Chris, can I add that I tried to book for next year and it looks like it's already full?
Oh, yeah. The day of, it's gone, yeah. So,
Book for what?
the campground,
Yeah.
we've already sold the entire campground out for that weekend next year. So, that's interestingly, that's the first weekend that completely sells out, because everybody that's there just automatically takes the site for next year. It's just, it's crazy. And so, we expect next year numbers are gonna be even bigger, so we've already started talking about logistics on how to handle all that, but good event. It's kind of neat to see that many people out in the park.
Good, thank you, Chris. Jared Lasser, land use.
We're just keeping busy as normal. I don't have anything, nothing on the agenda today, nothing notable for today.
Thanks, Jared. Ken Hyman, Community Services.
Good morning. We have our region meetings tomorrow, stakeholder meeting in the morning and governing board in the afternoon. So we'll get the normal business done tomorrow. Otherwise, I don't have anything new to report right now.
Thanks, Ken. Natalie Steffner, Des Moines County Recorder.
Good morning. Just to know, the recorder's office is open. Our window to the main office is broken. It's gonna be quite a few weeks for a part. Ronnie's been working on it, but I think it's just so old and trying to find the pieces for it. So we do have the Vital Records office next door that has 2 double windows where we're serving the public, so
Rodney says you need a custom-made spring.
that's what I hear.
We have a plasma cutter. I can have somebody come down and make new holes.
Thank you, Natalie. Brian Carter, Secondary Roads.
Good morning. Things are moving along, a couple things I want to note. We have a contractor, I suspect the rain in the forecast might push us the next week, but I just want to note that we're going to have a contractor come in and do some crack sealing on Mediapolis Road from Mediapolis down to Highway 99, so east of Mediapolis. It'll be basically a 2-day project. They'll have some traffic control, there'll be some 1 lane, there'll be no closures, but there will be 1 lane operation during the entire project. So they were hoping to come, it's just kind of 1 day at a time that's been moving back, because every day they're delayed by rain, it's a day back. So I suspect they'll either start work Friday or Monday, last I heard. But with rain tomorrow and possibly rain Friday, that may move back. So some way in the next week or so, there's gonna be a crew up there. They should be in and out. It should be 2 days and they'll be done. But we had some centerline cracks we really wanted to get sealed up. And so went forward with that. Pleasant Grove, I mentioned before, that paving is gonna push back till next year. They are hoping to do some of the grading, but yet again, I think the rain has pushed some of those dynamics back. So hopefully they'll be able to get going, I would guess next week. I would be surprised if they get anything going this week, again with the forecast they have. And that won't be a closure. There may be some 1 lane stuff there, but the closure won't be until they do the paving. I don't anticipate that till next spring. And then Flint Bottom, is kind of the same story, different location. They're trying to get the final dirt put in along the curbs, and the seeding contractor needs to come in, and you can't do that in mud. So the locals are all able to get in and out of their properties now. The paving's done except for, I believe they're still waiting on some parts for the intakes. I think the lids, they're still waiting on the lids. So what they're gonna do is if they can get the seeding done, they'll open the road up and just have cones around the intakes, and they'll finish that under traffic. But originally it's supposed to open this week, but yet again, rain this weekend, rain Monday, rain Wednesday, and possibly rain Friday. You can't do a whole lot of seeding in mud, so I would suspect that will probably be next week for that opening now. But like I said, the through traffic's not allowed, but the locals that live along there are getting in and out of their driveways. So So they're not significantly impacted by I call it a kind of a short weather delay on that. Otherwise, just out, finally got a dry day today, so the guys are out doing some touch-up light. We'll just see what the rain brings tomorrow.
I'm going to assume that you heard reports of the brevity last week's meeting without your report.
There were some rumors.
God, pick anywhere to grab a seat.
I chose to ignore most of them. So, it's good to see all of you.
I wanted to make sure you do that. Krista Fogelbauer, Public Health.
Good morning. We continue to be busy. We're still doing drive-through clinics out at Southeastern Community College at the fairgrounds. We do those Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays from 8:30 to 4. People can schedule an appointment on the Des Moines County website or on Public Health webpage, as well as we're also accepting people just to drive up, no appointments. We're trying to increase the number of people that come out and get the vaccine. The positivity rate is continuing to go down. We're at 10%, but 88 cases in the last 7 days. So we are seeing that trend downward, so hoping to continue that.
I had a public health question that I said I would refer to somebody that might know. There's places you can get an antibody test to see if you've had the virus. Does that pick up vaccination antibodies as well as, so all it does is pick up the
Yes.
infection antibodies? Okay.
Only the infection. It won't pick up, if people have had the vaccine, it won't pick that up. It's just, well, it shows, so it would show your antibodies. So if you've had the vaccine, it'll show your number of antibodies as well. A lot of people say, does it only show if you've had the infection? No, the antibodies is what it counts. So the serology testing will tell you the amount of antibodies you have in the system. Does that answer the question?
So it would pick up vaccine antibodies?
It would, yes, yes, it will tell you. And what you'll see is the people that have had the infection and then get the injection on top of it, they'll have more antibodies. So we see that count go up significantly.
Okay. Thank you, Krista. Rod, police for maintenance.
Good morning. Just preparing for the winter months. And as Kevin said, we got the active shooter drill today, so everybody a lot of people's looking forward to that, so.
I bet. Are you looking for victims?
We already got Shane
That's a
counted as one,
surprise.
so.
He's the one getting shot though, right?
No, but I definitely want to thank.
I can run
Kevin.
faster than Leia, that's all I'm saying.
Reporter's going down.
Definitely want to thank Kevin and his staff, emergency management and Angie for really helping coordinate that whole event. There's really a lot to it, so I can't thank them all enough, so I appreciate their help in putting this all together, so. And the board for letting us shut the courthouse down and do the drill, so thank you all. That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Angie Vaughn, safety.
Good morning. They've covered pretty much everything, so I really don't have anything for you today.
Doug Irvine, Correctional Center.
Good morning. I don't have anything new to report. We have 78 in the jail this morning. Six of those 78 are out of county. We have a couple waiting to go to Oakdale, and probably they should go probably this week. There's 4 more waiting to go to the residential facility, but that could be a month or 2 out. It's random on when those get picked up.
Will they just wait for room?
Yeah. Yep. Other than that, a couple of personnel actions. We're excited about some new hires.
Saw that. Anybody online?
No.
Okay. I didn't miss anybody. Okay. Correspondence.
I have none.
I have none. I had no correspondence. Proceed to discussion and vote. We have a Pleasant Grove Township resignation. To whom it may concern, I'm writing to inform you of my resignation from the position of clerk for the Pleasant Grove Township. I have moved from the area and no longer reside in the township. Sincerely, Joe Finnegy.
Move to approve.
Second. Sarah?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. And we have a Pleasant Grove Township appointment. The Des Moines County Board of Supervisors. I am requesting your approval to be appointed to complete the remainder of the four-year term expiring on December 31st, 2022 for Pleasant Grove Township. Melissa Tucker, 19536 180th Street.
Move to approve. Second.
And let me say, this is the quickest turnaround we've ever had for somebody resigning and finding somebody to replace them. Because it's hard to find people that want these positions.
That's a tougher job than the next one.
So they did a little coordinating amongst themselves to get this taken care
Good
of.
for 'em.
Well,
And we really appreciate that.
good, we appreciate both of them. Did we get a motion?
We did.
Okay. Sarah?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. We have personnel actions. We have one personnel action for GIS. We have Alex Engel, a GIS technician. A 6-month probation ends. His new rate is $38,000 annually.
Move to approve. Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. We have a personnel action for the county attorney's office. Haley Hamilton, a clerk 1, a 30-month step increase to $36,871.78, effective October 15th.
Second.
Sarah?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes.
I gotta see you pronounce this next one.
We have a personnel action for the correctional center. We had Elizabeth Grobstich, a full-time correctional officer, a new hire full-time. New rate is $39,867.37.
Move to approve.
We've got two for the, I know I said one, but we've got two for the correctional center. We have James Pleasant, a full-time correctional officer, a new hire full-time. New rate is $39,867.37.
Move to approve both actions.
I second that, but I want to see that smile on your face back there.
Yes,
Doug.
exactly.
You
Both
was
of
excited.
those, yeah, both of those come recommended from other staff members too. James Pleasant is currently a reserve with the county. So they'll bring us up to full staff. So very excited to get both those two.
Sweet.
That even made the sheriff smile.
In the end, it's his responsibility.
Oh, well, great.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes, please.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. We have reports. We have the recorder's report of fees collected, September 2021. We have Veterans Affairs monthly report, September 2021. The General Assistance monthly report, September 2021. The Sheriff's monthly report of September 2021, and the jail statistics for August 2021. These reports will be on file in the auditor's office and available for public review.
Sheriff's Department spent $3,885.78 on R&B. You looking for a story?
That's revenue. That's revenue.
Oh, you're charging people
Yes.
for R&B.
That was rhythm and blues.
How much are you making for rock and roll?
People are gonna pay what someone sings.
have minutes for the regular meeting of October 5th, and we do them both at the same time, the canvas, the election canvas from October 7th, 2021.
Move to approve both of them.
Second. Sarah?
Jim Carrey.
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. Any other business? I have none. Future agenda item. The auditor mentioned to me we'll need a work session. We've got some changes to the
ATV ordinance?
ATV. We had a work session with the recorder and the sheriff and the auditor a few weeks ago. So whenever it's convenient for you guys,
You're ready for it to go.
are you ready for it to go? We pretty much decided on what we needed. You
We
just want to
made
run.
the edits that I think we all kind of discussed in that work session, so if the board's reviewed it and they're good with it, then I think we're ready for approval.
Okay. Which was
So
put it
I'll
on the
have to-
agenda for next week.
I'll have to do the, well, I'll have to do the public notice.
Oh, okay, well,
And then we'll do the.
it's an amendment. Does that require 3 hearings?
I think so.
But we can waive the last 2, I'm assuming. Do we have to, can we do that immediately after we vote the first time, or does that have, we can't do that before we vote, or do we?
I don't think you do it before you.
Okay.
And I'm not sure you can waive both of them, I think.
We do have to go to the second one.
Yeah.
I'm thinking you have to do a second one.
Waive the last.
And then,
Okay.
yeah, then you can waive the third one, so. So I'll have to get that notice sent to the paper, and we'll have to decide what dates we want to do that. so.
Whatever works out. Any other future agenda items? Excuse me. Committee
Go
reports.
ahead.
Committee reports. I attended the county safety meeting. We discussed the upcoming active shooter drill, and the county had 0 recordable accidents over the last 2 months, so that's always good news. Public input. If anybody from the public would like to address the board, you may email the Board of Supervisors at board@dmcounty.com. That's board, board@dmcounty.com. You may call 319-753-8203, extension 4. That's 319-753-8203, extension 4. We'll give you a couple minutes to initiate that email or that call. And in the meantime, does anybody in attendance have any comments or complaints?
I spoke to Dan Wiedermeyer this morning on the phone. He wanted me to say hello to the board on his behalf, so.
Well, I can't say it now, but I think about him every once in a while when I see this
Yeah,
picture up here.
yeah, he called and wanted to talk about Highway 61, and so he asked me to pass that on to you guys.
Talk to him, give him our regards. Just so our guests are aware, we're gonna have a closed session. I don't believe it's gonna be very long. And after the closed session, we'll come back, we'll adjourn, so nobody else needs to stick around, except you two. But you're more than welcome to. And then we'll adjourn and we'll have a work session after the meeting.
You leave for the longest 2 minutes all week long.
Well, I gotta say, Brian wasn't here last week and it was a short meeting, but
That's,
this was pretty short. And he's here. Good job, Brian.
Good job.
he's out of practice.
That's what vacation chills you out.
AV, you sound like a teacher. Good job, Brian.
Yeah.
Let's
I get a
clap
star.
for the guys. Yay, Brian.
Gold star for me.
Gold star.
So our 2 minutes are up, so we need a motion to go into closed session.
I
I move that we go into closed session.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
Tom Broker.
Yes. We'll go in
I make a motion, we go out of closed session?
Second. Sarah?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. We were discussing the national opioid settlement.
Oh, okay.
So that I didn't realize that there was an opioid problem of any significance in Des Moines County, but apparently I'm wrong. Isn't that what you said?
We are seeing a rising level in opioid abuse. I know I received copies of all autopsy reports that come through for Des Moines County. We've seen several come through that are heroin overdoses, more often than not laced with fentanyl. We've had a couple of significant arrests for people in possession of pure fentanyl, which I'm sure you're all aware is pretty deadly. It's actually forced our task force and our local law enforcement to create some protocols for how to handle unknown white powders, which is generally what we see fentanyl in the form of. It used to be pills, but we're actually starting to see it in powder form. So we've changed our protocols for how officers deal with that when they do have to seize it due to the level of danger. But yes, we are seeing a growing problem. Some of it does start with legitimate prescription medications and then just goes from there. So it starts, somebody gets Percocet or hydrocodone prescribed to them for an injury, and after a while, they still think they need that, and the doctor disagrees and is no longer prescribing. Heroin is the next step to take because that gives the same effect. It's painkiller. So yeah, it's a growing problem.
But don't you have to shoot heroin? Don't you have to use a needle to administer the heroin? They're going
Most
from
people
taking a
do.
pill to doing shots?
Most people do, yeah. But we also have intravenous meth users, so intravenous drug use is not uncommon. We have a lot of people that shoot meth too, so.
I don't think the general public in Des Moines County, you think of opioid abuse as a appellation or something like that. I was truly surprised. I knew meth was around, but I did not realize opioid was a serious problem. That's depressing.
It's becoming more serious as time goes on.
How is that one of those drugs where if you even have a tiny bit that you can go to prison for a really long time?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Our legislature currently has enhanced penalties for possession with intent to deliver or manufacturing over 5 grams of methamphetamine.
Yeah, that's.
I'm
Right.
sure you're aware of that. B felony, there's a
Right.
mandatory minimum that has to be served.
Right.
Fentanyl and heroin and cocaine are still regarded as, no matter how much you have, well, I can't say that. The amounts are so
Yeah.
significant to
Right.
get you. The amounts that we would ordinarily see is just a C felony, no mandatory minimums. I would like to see the legislature start looking at opioids, particularly fentanyl and heroin, a little more seriously. I understand a lot of those statutes with regard to methamphetamine were from the late 90s when that was the
Right.
drug. And not to say that it's still not the drug.
Right.
We see more of it than we do anything else in Des Moines County, but we are seeing a rising level of opioids. Cocaine is just one of those we very rarely see anymore. We just don't very often, unless there's for some reasons a clog in the supply chain for methamphetamine, and then we'll see more cocaine. But otherwise, as long as the flow of methamphetamine is fairly consistent, we don't see a lot of cocaine. Because meth is cheaper than cocaine. But we are seeing a rising level of heroin, and again, particularly of concern is that it's laced with fentanyl.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, with an eye, we're adjourned.
Boy, this sobered me right up. Woo!
We're adjourned. We'll have a work session. The board usually gets 5 minutes to take a break. We'll be back. session with the board and representatives of Carl A. Nelson and Company regarding the possibility of a construction manager for the Moines County Public Health Project. You gentlemen would introduce yourselves for the record.
All right, Dan Culp with Carl A. Nelson and Company.
Craig Nice, it's Carly Nelson.
Be quite honest with you gentlemen, and glad you sent this. When Dan reached out, he sent that email, and I was in construction for a long time, and I guess I forgot about it. I talked to somebody in Des Moines when we were up there, and they said, well, this is federal money, you've got to have an RFQ or an RFP, and we have Southeast Iowa Regional Planning here comparing RFQs to RFPs and hiring an engineer. And then when you reached out and asked if we'd consider a construction manager, quite honestly, we hadn't. But the board was interested after, they saw that email. So the floor is yours.
All right, well.
If I'm in your way, I'll move.
We put together a presentation for you, and so I contacted Tom, it's been a few weeks ago, and just in regards to this project, but really maybe even for future projects. This may not work, and this may be something you say, yeah, we don't want to do this. It's up to you as a board, obviously, and we just want to show you what the benefits are to the county. And I know, Mr. McCampbell, you probably, I don't know if you recall our presentation to the city. Well, I was about to say, no, we've got experience in the
Yeah,
past, and
and,
it's a good, we've had a good relationship, so.
And we'll talk a little bit about that throughout this presentation, so. Well, we appreciate you giving us the opportunity to be here, and obviously, let's see, my arm. Change down here, but it's not changing there. That's weird.
We've got the IT guy here, so we're covered.
Well,
And if Tom can't fix it, well,
Yeah.
Blaming on Greg.
Working there we go. All right, it's working now. Okay. So I'm a project executive with Carl A. Nelson and Company. Tom and I worked together years and years and years ago. I can't remember how long
Maybe
ago.
only years and years.
How long ago has that been?
It would have been, I'm sure it would have been over 50,
Yeah.
at least 15 or 20,
Yeah.
something like
It's
that.
been a while. And I've been with Carl Nelson Company for 26 years and have 31 years of experience in the business. So I'll talk a little bit about Carl A. Nelson and Company. One thing I'd point out is that you see the plaque on the right. We took a picture of that not too long ago. Craig came up, took a picture of that, and got to looking at it. There's only one company still in business there that took part in the building of the courthouse, and that's Carl A. Nelson and Company. So we've been here for 108 years in Burlington, Southeast Iowa.
You built the courthouse?
We were one of the builders in the courthouse.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess I've never looked at that sign.
Yeah. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Jim, do you
So
remember
that
that sign being made?
He's an engineer, what are you gonna do?
I'll leave that alone. Carl A. Nelson Company's been around a long time. That was just kind of a little point to that we were involved in the original courthouse project here. We are an employee-owned company. All of our owners are active employees in the company. There's 33 shareholders. And a good portion of our work is for repeat clients. And the big point of that is that we do good work. We do quality work. People trust us, put confidence in us, and then that translates into future projects. We have experienced leadership in our company. All of our management staff have good experience in the industry. And a few things that help us be really good construction managers is the fact that we do have licensed engineers and licensed architects on staff. That we're not going to design your project, but when we look at your project from a standpoint of, is this the best way to do this? We actually have in-house
staff that can help us develop scenarios that we can evaluate and make sure you get the best product for the project. And from a construction management agency aspect, we have quite a bit of experience in that. We have worked all over Iowa as a construction manager for public entities, including counties, cities, school districts, and there's very few contractors really in Iowa that compare with us from that aspect. So the level of expertise that we have in this delivery method for construction is pretty high. And you already know this, but we're just gonna point it out. As a public entity,
Don't assume we know anything.
There's
Not to be getting in the truck, but
there's only really two delivery methods that you're allowed to do right now, and that's design, bid, build, which is the traditional, design the project, put it out for bid, and take the lowest bid. And then construction management agency, where you hire us as your agent to oversee the project, and we put the project out for bid, and we manage that project. You know, a better scenario would be design build. We think it's the best that's available, but it's not available to you as a public entity. Construction management at risk is another possibility, but it's still has not been allowed by the state yet.
let me ask you a question. Now, you're talking about, what about federal procurement regulations? Do they vary much from state?
Not necessarily, no. So in Iowa, well, let me back up. Yes, they do, because federal allows design build and federal allows construction management at risk. But the issue is that you have federal dollars that's going into an Iowa public improvement, right? So Iowa public bid laws will govern in the fact that it does not allow hard bid.
Okay.
Or I mean, it does not allow design build.
Yeah, okay.
Or construction management, but there are other strings that are attached typically to federal funds.
Yeah.
And some of those are in the procurement method of selecting a designer and selecting a construction manager. You just have to look at those requirements. We work with a lot of facilities that do have some federal dollars involved. I don't know if this is completely federal will be completely federally funded.
It is our intention right now. The county's gonna get $7.5 million. This is our number one priority, is this facility. So it's our intention that it will be 100% federal dollars, unless for some reason the feds decide they don't like the project and then they say, pay us back. Right.
And that's the elephant in the room.
Have you guys had to deal with DOT funds? Had to do any of those projects?
We have, I can't tell you I've had any experience with that, but we have done DOT work in the past, yes. So federal funds will, you know, if you get federal dollars on a project, even if it's somewhat financed by the county, federal dollars always pollutes a project. So whatever strings comes with the federal dollars that gets applied to the project. Some of those are like Davis-Bacon wages and other requirements.
The one thing about this is ARP funds, Davis-Bacon will not affect us.
Okay.
That's been excluded from us. There was one place that said the project's over $10 million, but then there's somewhere else. If you go to the frequently asked questions, it said Davis-Bacon regulations do not apply.
I'll look at that.
Okay, well, I mean, if we would decide to go to the construction manager, I'm assuming that there would be so many people we would have to interview, you know, to choose a construction manager.
Possibly.
And that would be, but I can get you a link to those frequently asked questions where it talks about Davis-Bacon.
So we'll start talking about the benefits of having a construction manager involved in your project. And as you see in this graph, really what this graph is showing you is a progression of time. You start with a program, you go to schematic design, design development, construction documents, then in construction. All that's a little bit of time, but as you go through that timeline, the ability for us to influence and the opportunity for us to add value to the project diminishes with time. That means as as the project gets more designed, there's less opportunity to change things to make things more optimum. So as you look at this, you can see that as you go through this process, it gets more expensive to make changes. So there's really, the point is that having a construction manager involved in the project really brings a lot of value if they're involved at the very beginning. So from that very beginning, when you're looking at concepts, and in fact, a lot of the clients that we work for have us help them select the architect. Go through that process and help them develop an evaluation of the design firms.
So you're guaranteeing if you get this gig that there's gonna be no change orders, is that what you're saying?
No guarantee on that, no.
Just checking.
Anybody that guarantees you that, they're
Is
pulling
lying.
your leg.
Is lying.
So what we look at, and we think are the three main factors for selecting a construction manager, are based on these three things here: trust, value, and freedom. Why do you hire a construction manager? You want somebody that you trust, somebody who's looking out for your best interest on the project. You want somebody that's bringing value to the project, not just being another management arm, not just being there, but actually providing value. And really the last one is to let you focus on what you're doing, as a job. You're not having to focus on the project. And so we do the management to keep you from having to try to micromanage a project. So what brings trust to this group here? Some of you have experience with us in the past. That would be one reason why you would have trust and confidence in Carly Nelson and Company doing this. But whoever you select, I would say that you need to be able to that's the one question you got to be able to answer. Do I trust this individual or this group of people to look out for our best interest on this project? If you don't have that feeling or that level of trust when you're going through this process, you shouldn't be doing it. It's a different type of contracting method, and it really depends on having trust and confidence in people that are going to work for you. You can see here that we've got experience in healthcare as a construction management in healthcare, building clinics, all kinds of clinics. We'll look at a little bit more of that in a minute. Education projects throughout the state, city and county projects. And then for a lot of cities, we've been doing recreation projects. That's becoming a big part of the marketplace today.
Let me ask you this, on these healthcare, did you design some of these, so you got architects on?
Well, actually, of the facilities listed there, we did not do any of the design work. That was all third-party designers. They were significant projects, and our architects on staff we're not out competing with architects to design projects. Now, there are small clinic projects that we've done where we've done, we've done a lot, like a remodel project for clinics that we've gone in and we've done the design work just because it's simple, it's cost effective, and we can control the time, we can control the schedule. But for most of these projects, and you'll be looking for a third-party design firm to come in and do the design for this. So just a little bit about our clinic experience. You're all familiar with Great River Health Systems. We've done a lot of work for their different facilities in West Burlington. We built the brand new clinic in Keokuk just a couple years ago. We built a lot of the facilities down in Fort Madison, especially for their clinics, and built a standalone clinic for them in Wapello. Washington County Hospital, we built probably 75% of the building that's there now. We built a brand new building. They've got a used building or an older building that's attached to it. Henry County Health Center, we built several additions there and done several renovations lately for clinics in the Henry County Health Center. Jefferson County, it was a brand new hospital we built. And then we've done quite a few projects for community health centers. The one that's located here in southeast Iowa, which It has a facility in West Burlington, Keokuk, and Columbus City, and we've built all of those. And also, the Community Health Center of Southern Iowa, we built an addition and renovation in their Leon facility in Leon, Iowa, but we built a brand new behavioral health clinic and facility in Osceola for them. And we're currently working in People's Community Health Center in Waterloo and Steinway Clinic. We're doing some work with them. And we did the Steinway Clinic here in town. So talk about what we bring to the table. That we believe that you can look at our past, our experience, and develop the sense of trust. You know, not maybe listening to me, but contacting people that have worked with us or from your own experience. We'll talk a little bit about how we can bring value to the project and what that means to you. So as a construction manager, we would sit in on all the design meetings. We would review the designs as we're going through each stage of the design process, developing scheduling and phasing plans as necessary, making sure that we're looking ahead of what's happening in the marketplace. And I don't know if you're keeping up with what's going on right now, but you know, bar joists are 10 to 12 months lead time. It's crazy. Steel, a lot of steel members you can't get readily available. So some projects that we're working on right now, as a construction manager, we've kind of taken a step back and looked at alternative ways of building these buildings. That's going to be an important thing. I don't think the supply chain is going to get better in a long time. So I think we're still going to have issues with getting the materials that we need for a while. So with that in mind, having a construction manager on board, we're able to look at scenarios and price those out and see, does this fit within our budget, and does this make sense for the county? You know, and maybe in some cases it's do we change the structure? Do we change the location? There's all kinds of issues that we would probably look at. And then as construction manager, we develop the bid packages. We are the ones that go out and solicit the contractors for that and really try to grow the interest in the project so we have a good bid participation. One of I think the best things that we do, the one that kind of excites us the most is really the value engineering. And that's not where we come in and say, okay, the project's over budget, so let's put in cheaper carpet and cheaper ceilings, and let's put in the junk door handles that we get down the street. And those things are all going to break down quicker, wear out quicker. It's going to be things that people see. We're looking at the project of what brings the most value to the project. We've got a couple great examples here, but sometimes it's not looking at the finishes. It's really looking at the structure. It's looking at the mechanical systems. Sometimes it's even looking at location of the building. That makes a huge difference. This example right here is a hospital that we built, brand new replacement hospital we built a few years ago. It's a small one. It's in Leon, Iowa for Decatur County Hospital. And the architect and engineer on that project, we're both in one firm. It was an all-inclusive firm. But they had designed on that project to use water-cooled chillers for that building. And as we were going through the design and costing this project out, estimating at different levels of this project, we realized that the mechanical system was above what it should be for the size of the building. And and mechanical systems make up 40% of your project typically. They're expensive. That's an expensive piece of your project. So if you don't have anybody evaluating what you're doing for your HVAC on a project, you're losing opportunity right there to save money. So we looked at this, we did some evaluations of what the cooling load was in that building. Tim Seibert in our company, Jim had asked earlier about Tim, and Tim's a professional engineer, he's a structural engineer, he's a mechanical engineer, I think he's about 75% electrical engineer. The guy, there's not much he doesn't know. But he did a very in-depth evaluation about the systems that they were proposing there. And we made a recommendation to them to change to an air-cooled chiller. They were resistant to that. The engineer was resistant to that because here was his point. We always put water-cooled chillers in these buildings. That's just our standard. This is what we do. And so that's one of the things you fight in the design industry, is that they do get into just a mode of doing it a certain way. But we got them to look at this from a different perspective. We did an estimate of what it would save, and not only save on the upfront cost, but what it would save on their operating cost. And they estimated that their operating cost savings would be $19,000 a year, approximately $19,000 a year, for the life of that equipment. Which, if you do the math, that equipment's probably going to last 20, 25 years at least. That's over $500,000 of savings. So, that's just from looking. That's just looking at a project and looking at what can we change that brings value, but doesn't change. Nobody else will ever know that change was made. It doesn't affect the cooling in the building. It doesn't. Nobody's ever going to see that, but it saved them a lot of money. This is a unique situation. We were building an auditorium for a school district in Washington, Iowa. The school district came to us and said, we're a little short on our fundraising. We need to cut costs, but at the same time, we need more storage. We need more space. We need more storage space. And so, I don't know if you know about buildings, but you can't add square feet and cut costs. That's pretty difficult to do. It just doesn't happen that way. Usually when you're cutting costs, it means, okay, let's lop off a part of this building. But what we began to look at what they were doing, the traditional method, again, going back to how people do things all the time, the traditional method is for the risers in the back to build those with what's called geofoam blocks. And you just stack those up and you pour concrete on top of those, and that's what builds those risers. And so obviously the space, those geofoam blocks take up a lot of space below, and it's not used for anything else. We came up with this solution of adding, changing those geofoam blocks to put in precast planks to take the place of those. And what that ended up doing was opening up all that square footage underneath that structure for storage. And they gained over 1,500 square feet by doing that. And that was just thinking outside the box, looking at doing it differently than what the norm is. And that's where the value comes from value engineering, is not finding out when you're over budget and then looking for ways to cut. It's looking at those things during design to bring an optimum design to the bid. Then the other thing is that you need to have accurate estimates during this process. We just saw an article about a project in Iowa that had an estimate from the architect before they'd started. It was a county jail. Before they started the project, they had an estimate. It was not accurate. They brought somebody on board to be their construction manager. They did an estimate. It was not accurate. That project's $3 or $4 million at least, maybe more like $6 million really from the original estimate. Over $6 million over their budget. And it was because they did not have accurate estimates at any point in that whole process. So we track this when we're doing estimates on construction management projects. And so on an average, our projects come in 3.8% below what our estimates are for those projects. Now, it doesn't say everyone's going to come in at that amount, but that's on an average that we are that close to the actual final amount. you're gonna estimate that project and you're gonna put it out for bid, and you're gonna take the lowest bids in those bid packages. But, you know, that's a pretty accurate amount, and that gives you confidence in making decisions during the design phase. As you're contemplating, can we afford to put this in the building, or do we need to take something out to make budget? You can rely on the estimates that we're giving you that they're accurate, and you can make decisions based on that. One of the things that we really push hard for is to make sure that we have local bid participation. And this is just a recent project at Southeast, the Community Health Center here in Southeast Iowa. You can see that almost all of our bidders are from the area. We could show you, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these different graphs of different areas that we've worked in Iowa, and we'll have similar results where, you know, 65–75% of the bidders or the successful bidders are from the general area of the project. So it is something that we push hard, making sure that local bidders are involved in the project. Then the last thing I want to talk about is our services during construction, and keeps you from having to walk the job and trying to evaluate changes and know what to do with that. So I'll talk a little bit about that. As a construction manager, we'll help you develop the overall budget. Some people think that we're only going to look at construction costs, but typically in a budget, you have a lot of other costs involved in a project. You've got maybe surveying and geotech costs that have to be taken into account. You might have legal fees, and so we have an entire budget to set up, and it's got all these buckets that you want to make sure that you check the box and say, I've got this covered. We need money. We need to have something, an estimate, or we need to put money in this bucket for this cost. Just making sure that you don't get to the point where you're getting ready to do the project and realize, oh, we did not realize we had these costs unrelated to the construction, but these costs over here that should be included in the project. So we try to help you make sure that you've got the complete budget before you get started. You know, we'll put a supervisor on the job typically, or we'll supervise the job, manage the job, making sure that it's being built in accordance with the drawings. This particular project, we'd have to look at that. It's a fairly small project, so we'd have to look at what works best for the county and what works best for that project and how we would manage that. But certainly, as change orders come up, we review those. We want to make sure that they're legitimate first before we ever spend much time with them. And if we think that it's a legitimate change, then we're going to review that cost and before we ever submit it to the county and say, yeah, this is right. Because keep in mind, we're not working for them as a contractor. We're working for you as a construction manager. So by contract, we're an extension of your staff, really. And so it's our duty and our job is to make sure that that your best interest is being looked out for. Give you a quick example. We were doing a project in northwest Iowa just recently, and they knew they had unsuitable soils on the project, so they had included some of that in the estimate for the project, but not really knowing the extent of the issue. And when they got into excavating, they realized or came to find that the amount of unsuitable soils was considerably more than what they'd originally planned. And the contractor submitted his pricing to us as a construction manager, but at the same time, we were doing our own cost estimate for what we saw as the extent of that work. And the end result of that was that the contractor didn't really have a good feel of what was required by him on contract and what was extra. And so we were paying attention to that, and we made sure that we negotiated that to make sure that his change only included what was extra above his contract. And what happened is it cut well over almost $400,000 out of that change order. It was a huge change, but I think it cut almost half of the change. The architect told me later, he said that, as an architect, he said if we were challenged to evaluate that change, he said we wouldn't have been able to figure out what was contract, what was not contract, what the cost should have been versus what they had submitted. And he said the owner would have ended up paying a lot more than what they did when we evaluated it. So it is important. You are gonna have change orders. There's no perfect drawings. There's no perfect world. Things happen. And we try to control that as much as we can during the design phase, but obviously there's gonna be a few things that get through. And you just have to be prepared for that. And that's one of the things about creating a budget, making sure that you have a reasonable contingency on that budget, to cover those changes, and that's what we do. And then looking out for your, quality control on the project, schedule on the project, it's important. Safety on the project is huge. And then finally, typically most of your warranties on a project are 1 year, sometimes they're 2 years, and on some equipment there may be 5 years or 10 years, but typically after the 11-month period, we'll come back on the job, walk the job with the county's designated person and make sure that there are no warranty issues that haven't been taken care of yet, and make sure that they get taken care of before that warranty lapse, so that you don't get to the 12th month and 1 day and find out, oh, well, we've had this problem all along, but nobody knew anything about it, and we didn't do anything about it. So, of course, like I said, we've been around for 108 years, so we're not going anywhere. So we're definitely, we're here to support the county. I can't tell you how many projects I still stop by, projects we've completed 12 years ago probably, and I still stop by once a year, check on how's everything going, how are things working. Sometimes I'll find out it's not working well, that the guys maintaining their HVAC has messed something up, and so I'll help them find somebody that can help them solve their problem. So I guess the question is here, if there's any discussion about construction management, maybe you just want to know about construction management, as a whole, or about what our company can offer.
Thank you, that was interesting, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys bringing the construction management option to our attention. And I don't know, what I'm assuming is it would be just like if we were going to do design, build, we would have to interview so many construction managers. Is the way I understood when I talked to the guy at the state, I don't remember what county he was with, it was a big county, and he said you'll have to. So if you did go, so my questions are about construction management. How does a construction manager make money? I mean, you get a percentage of the
So
how's that work?
let me address the first point.
Okay.
A little bit, your discussion with somebody else. In Iowa, under Iowa public bid laws, there are no stipulations on how you select a construction manager. In fact, a lot of organizations, for example, the Iowa Department of Education puts out a booklet for, there's a guide on their website, and I think they put out a booklet for for school districts that discusses the construction management scenario. And in Iowa, it's considered a professional service, just like an architect is. There are no prescribed requirements for you to go through any kind of selection process. You can either go through a selection process. Typically, that's done because that particular public entity has a requirement to do it locally. They've got some written requirement. This is how we do things. But in Iowa, you can either go through a selection process, or you can talk to a particular construction manager and say, we want to work with you, let's negotiate a contract. That's available. Now, federal may change that. The federal dollars may change that scenario.
The way it was explained to me, is he said, this is different than FEMA. He said FEMA has different procurement requirements because that's an emergency. He said this will be subject to federal procurement.
And it could be, yes.
So that's when we were looking at design, bid, build. Anyway, so he said you will have to, when he said you'll have to have a request for qualification or a request for proposal. And he said, at least for a design, you have to score it ahead of time. You have to say, okay, it's gonna be scored, you're gonna get 10% on experience, 20% on this, 20% on it, and then so that everything's clear how something's gonna be judged. I'm gonna, Southeast Iowa Regional Planning actually wrote up a preliminary request for a proposal in that, so we'll talk about this. I might ask them to say, check on that. Who would you check with? Brian, to check on federal procurement? Would you ask Southeast Iowa Regional Planning or?
Well, yeah.
Tom, can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, is that you, Zach?
Zach James.
Yeah, I
I was just
apologize, I couldn't get there in person, but I did jump on here a little bit ago.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, with the ARPA money, my understanding has to follow 2 CFR Part 200, which is federal procurement. And so you need to go through what they call the formal procurement method, which is basically you take bids through some kind of RFP and you need to evaluate them.
Okay.
I think it's an RFQ and then RFP process. I think that you have a qualification section of that and then a proposal section. I don't know if you have to establish what that, because your second question I'll answer here, but we do a lot of projects with community health centers and they're funded through a lot of federal funds. HRSA is one of them, and I think some of it comes through USDA rural development. But they all have a little bit different procurement requirements. Some of those do. The CFR that he's talking about has, I think, a prescribed method in it that I think we've got some information on. But the point I was making, I do realize that if it's federally funded, that you probably do have procurement requirements. But the reason I was making the point, in the future, if you have a county project funded by the county, you don't have to go through that process if you don't want to. You've got other choices to make there.
And I appreciate, like I said, you guys being here. When I talked to the guy, he said there were federal procurement that applied to this. So, yeah, for this one, I think we would have to do that. And so most of my questions are about construction management. So how does a construction manager, you get a percent of the total contract, or agree on certain services?
So typically, it's broken into 2 parts. Typically, it's broken into pre-construction services, which is during the design phase. And typically, that is a lump sum cost. Sometimes we see it as a requirement of a percentage or even a not to exceed requirement. So give us an amount not to exceed on pre-construction. And then when the project is designed and going to bid, you begin that construction phase. Typically, the construction phase is a percentage of the construction cost. And then the cost of general conditions on the project. So that would be if you had a superintendent on the project, if you have dumpsters on the project, if you have porta-johns on the project, any kind of things that have to be done on the project but are not typically in a bid package. That's typically done by a general contractor, is in the general conditions.
And then it's also my understanding that a construction manager does not self-perform. In other words, you say, well, we're going to do the concrete work. You don't do that.
So in Iowa, some states have a very strict policy about that. Iowa does not. Iowa's a little bit behind in that they have never really addressed that. But in general, we do not self-perform work on construction management projects. I don't think we ever have. There have been a few times where we have actually been asked by the owner to bid a package because there aren't the number of bidders on the job either is zero, or they're anticipating that they're not gonna get anybody, so they've asked us to bid it, which we've only done reluctantly because they've asked us to do, and I don't think we've ever ended up doing that. Ended up doing the package. We've gotten somebody to bid the job so that, so we wouldn't have to. It is always better to not have somebody self-perform and be the construction manager. Federally, they may, I don't know, and maybe Zach has the answer to this, I don't know if they have a specific requirement on that, but I'm assuming that it would be, construction manager cannot self-perform.
I could see where that would create a conflict.
Yeah,
if you were-
it's just
if you
not
were-
good. It just doesn't look good.
Yeah, if you were gonna take bids, and your bid was one of the bids and said, well, we'll help you evaluate the bids.
Yeah.
Don't like this one, don't like this one, this is a
Well-
great bid, who's, oh, Carl, I know.
Yeah. It is just it's a strange way to do business, and we've always looked at that as something that we just don't want to do.
You guys have any questions?
No.
You guys have any questions?
No, I'm good, go ahead.
Brian, do you got any questions?
No, I think it's a good idea, I really do. I think it'd make for a better project, and I think you're right, it's with the federal part of it, following the CFR 200s to make sure that the federal funds aren't jeopardized, because one small area can jeopardize everything, and that's not what anybody wants, so, as long as that's done, I think this is, they're basically on a project like this, handling it like we do a construction project, it's bringing somebody in, and this would be the weakest point of any project that the board takes on directly. I've seen it in the past, is that true oversight. You can have an engineer that did the design and does some communication, but that true day-to-day oversight is typically the weak point on a project like this, so I like the idea.
Rodney, what do you think?
The same as Brian. I think it would be a good deal for the overall project that we're looking at. So.
Krista?
I don't have any questions.
I like the idea of it, I really do, I was excited when I told you we got that deal in. And I like the idea. I think it's great, it's gonna save the county some money. And it takes a lot of weight off our shoulders.
Somebody's gonna have to manage the project, one, and their little middle word was trust.
I kind of had my eye on you.
Lord,
Hey,
no.
the camera's still rolling,
part of
Tom.
the job?
The camera's still rolling, Tom. But it is good to have somebody local, somebody you have experience with, somebody you can trust, that they're gonna do the best to try to get somebody from without the community that's just coming in to hustle and to just get some money, and they don't care what it looks like afterwards, they don't have to see us. But I'm gonna see you. I don't know where you shop, but I'll find that out. No, so I'm glad you guys came down. I'm interested.
Terry and the auditor's got a lot to do over public facilities. Do you have any thoughts?
No.
Full of wisdom, but
We didn't talk at all about the police station here in town, but, that was it's a good
Oh, that's
example,
right.
that we came in a little bit late on that project. They had already been working with an architect. So when we were brought on board, we did an estimate right away. The drawings were somewhat, maybe schematic, and it was over budget, considerably over budget at that point in time. And so we worked pretty diligently with the design team and with the city to bring that project back into the budget and finish that way, so.
Well, I feel the same as the rest of them. I'm really happy that you left that message on the my voicemail a couple of weeks ago. I said, email us something, because I think it sounds to me like it would be make the project go much better for the county and for the community.
Now, we think for most public projects, you know, really small projects would be hard to do, but we've got school districts that call us and say, hey, we're gonna do a boiler replacement, we want you guys to do it. Obviously, we're not gonna put a superintendent on that job all the time, you know, we'll go check on it once a week, but they're like, hey, we know you guys will take care of it, we know that, you know, we don't have to worry about it, and so, it's, you know, we've done $250,000 jobs as a construction manager, and, you know, you just have to be able to, mold that team and the way it's going to be managed based on the size of the project and what that project can maintain and carry.
Dan, you'd probably get more jobs if you left Craig at home. He talks too much.
I thought
We're tired of warning him about.
Well, I got something to ask you here. On these, how many projects do you actually put up in let's say, in central United States area where you work, that's water cooled?
Water cooled chillers?
Yeah.
So there's quite a few.
Is there?
Yeah, so there's kind of a threshold where a water cooled chiller becomes much more efficient, cost effectively, than an air cooled chiller. So you'll see them in schools and hospitals where they have big cooling loads. But I think our take on this was that if the cooling load was below 500 tons, which is kind of that threshold that we think is the right threshold for that, the air-cooled chiller makes more sense. It's less expensive and it's much less costly in maintenance.
Do you use ground source on that?
Oh, well, yeah. Now it's a little different. you're talking about a geothermal system.
Well, a geothermal ground source for the air cooled. You use for the water cooled.
Actually, so a geothermal system works a little bit differently and would not require a chiller, because the geothermal system, as it takes the water down in the ground, it gives off its heat and it picks, you know, and the water becomes cold again. Generally, it'll come out of the ground about 58 degrees. So, you know, then you don't have to run it through a chiller to get it down cold enough to use it for cooling. Now, the other issue with geothermal would be the heating side, because now you're maybe going down and picking up 58-degree water. You need to heat that up to get to your temperature, and so you'll have some reheat involved. But geothermal systems work great for certain types of facilities and loads. So you really have to look at how are we going to use this, and does it make sense for that facility, because it has a cost implication on it.
I remember when the hospital built theirs out there, at one time I knew there's not just feet, it's miles of pipe.
Oh, it
in
is.
that pond.
Yeah, underneath the pond.
Yeah, we sold all that piping for that.
Yeah.
And it's miles, it's not feet.
It takes a lot of space to cool that. Yeah.
Well, I still got a couple questions. Zach, are you still there?
I am. I had a couple questions myself.
Oh, you have right at it.
You go ahead.
Well, one of the things I was gonna ask you is, I remember we talked about it, and we've got the federal requirements, the CFRs. We need to check, and you know, and I know that if we hire a construction manager, how that has to be done to meet those requirements. I do not want nobody wants the feds to run a random audit about 3 years from now and say, oh, by the way,
You messed this up.
you violated that, send us a check for X number of dollars. So if we could check that out, and either one, Dan or Zach, I was a contractor, remember that AIA's got a document for everything. Do they have a standard RFP form for construction management?
I don't know that they have an RFP form. I'll check that out. I'm not aware of that. Most of the RFPs we receive or we are developed in-house.
Okay.
The RFP, now there's a contract for construction management that's an AIA contract. But it would,
But that's the contract, that's not
the
the
contract, it's not
request.
an RFP. Right.
Okay.
Is there an RFQ for?
I'll have to look. I'm not sure of that.
That RFP we developed, Tom, is based off of other ones we've done in the past that are following that CFR 200 guidance.
I think if you have something that works, you
I
can
think
do
it
that.
would just need to follow kind of a similar format, just maybe the scope of work would probably change a little bit.
In other words, that RFQ that you guys, we've got the draft of, could be adapted for a
Yes.
construction manager. Okay.
Correct.
I think your scope of work would change a little bit because you're adding a layer, but you're still complying with CFR 200 with the RFQ process. So I think you're already, the work that regional planning's put into it's not lost, it's already a part of the process.
One of the things that I would suggest is that, and this may not be possible in this scenario because of the federal funds, but generally what we recommend to clients is to put out an RFQ first. And like I said, this may not apply here, but keep this in mind for future. Put out a request for qualifications first, and then narrow that field down to 3 maybe qualified, contractors or construction managers. And then interview them, and and then require them to give you a proposal at that interview after the interview. And don't open those proposals till you've interviewed and you rank them based on qualifications and how you feel about them through the interview process. Because once you look at price, that's kind of like, we're human. It's human nature. It's like, oh, okay, he's cheapest. But if you go through the interview process, you develop that mindset of who can I work with the best? Who out of these 3 teams do I think works the best? Will work the best for me or for my county or entity? And then look at the price, and then let the price be what it is. If it's significant differences, then that may be a decision-making factor. But at least you didn't use the price to make your decision. You used your price to help make your decision. So in this case, that may not be you may not be able to do that because they may be asking for all of it at one time.
Interesting concept.
That's how we were gonna handle the process already. We discussed that, and we weren't gonna let price drive that.
We had a grading system on it.
Yeah, that was very similar to what we'd already discussed.
Yeah. And what you can do in that case is just downgrade the price factor as a decision maker in that in your checklist. But
Zach, you had a couple questions?
Yeah, and I apologize because I missed some of the presentation. I guess maybe just want to understand some of the construction management assistance there. So, because we had talked about process of kind of determining some general characteristics needed for public health facility and assistance in siting, like where it would go. And I didn't catch that. Was that the part of the construction management services?
I think he's talking about
yeah.
a search for a design,
Yeah.
engineer, architect, design.
So we help a lot of our clients do that. We help them select the design team, but we also help a lot of our clients in site selection, in evaluating different sites, to come up with the best. That can have a huge effect on the cost of the project if you pick the site that has a lot of issues to it that you don't realize.
Okay.
Would you give preliminary estimates before some of this stuff is done instead of, okay, you've got an X number of square feet here, this kind of building, it's a clinic, we want a 4-story one.
Right. So, I would say that we could give some preliminary estimates, based on, some parameters that are developed, right? Because you need a budget to go forward. You need to understand where are we going. So I quite often, we do conceptual estimating all the time, just talk about and come to an understanding of what's required in this facility. And we can get a general feel for the size of that building and for the type of structure, for the location, and do a fairly good preliminary estimate. That's something that you can use to kind of establish your budget for the construction, and then, you know, you keep designing to that budget, right? You keep looking at that budget as you go through that process.
Zach, do you have another question?
I don't know if it's a question, I guess I'm just trying to think through the process a little bit, because I think if you had a construction manager, you'd have to go through an RFP.
Zach, we've got another copy of those, of the, Carl and Nelson's, their presentation.
Yeah.
How about if we put that in your mailbox here?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, we'll do that.
And Zach, anytime I can come out and sit down with you too, if you like.
No, that's fine. I guess I'm trying to clarify, because if you're a construction manager, I'm just thinking through, then we'd still need to go through some kind of proposal process for design,
Yes,
correct? Okay.
yes.
I'm just trying to think through kind of what the steps are. So it's not really a question, it's more just a comment.
I think the process of selecting
Thinking
a,
what the process would look like. I think it's probably pretty similar to what we were doing, but we add a step of adding in a construction manager proposal as well.
so I think he's right. I think your selection process for a designer is gonna be very similar to what you do for a construction manager. I don't think it'll be much different.
It's just that the construction manager would have been selected by then, and they would be a part of that
They would
overall
help.
process and give you some advice on that.
Right.
I think that would be
Got
helpful.
it. Okay.
Okay.
So not necessarily a question, just clarifying some things. Thank you.
So why don't, and I don't know where you're allowed to do it without indebting ourselves to Carl A. Nelson, whether he could reach out to you about designing what needs to be in a construction management contract, so when he writes that request for qualification, is that over? Is that?
Well, I think you gotta, you're right, there's a line in there.
Yeah.
I think there was a fair number of things mentioned in the presentation that are just in general that were kind of sell points for Carl A. Nelson, but,
Yeah.
or kind of describe the industry as a whole as to what a project manager, personally, I would limit your interaction, and I don't mean this bad, but as much as possible, you limit your interaction with somebody who you very well may hire in a competitive process. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's what
you wanna
I
make
mean,
it
it's
as
just
honest and open and fair as
a
possible.
no-go.
I don't mean that bad.
No,
but
oh,
that's-
no, I'm sure Dan understands that. I'm certainly not trying to rain on him, but if it's sort of like
It's like
bidding.
contractors.
If you're the construction manager, you're
Yeah.
bidding on
Well,
concrete work.
This presentation, we want it to be informative, but it's kind of hard for us to do it without kind of selling ourselves at the same time,
I
right? So,
understand, it's a tough spot for you. to be in.
but we also, a part of that is selling what the process should be like, what a construction manager should do. Because we hear from people who hire construction managers, and then they find out that, during the design process, they show up a couple times at meetings, they do a couple budgets, but they're really not engaged, right? And you don't need that. I mean, don't hire a construction manager if they're not gonna be engaged in the process. You need somebody that's gonna be there from the beginning to the end and be engaged.
And preferably somebody from Des Moines County.
Oh,
That's where my
that'd be nice,
partiality
too.
is always, for somebody that lives, a business that lives within Des Moines County, always
And
partial to that.
And I would suggest that.
That's just how I do it.
That there aren't very many contractors in Iowa that do construction management agency, and it is different than being a general contractor. And we find that, we do general contracting all the time. Being a construction manager takes a different mindset, takes different skills. We have superintendents that we don't put on construction management projects because they're not the right fit for that. And project managers, same way. So, you can't just take any contractor and say, we're gonna, if they don't have the experience in doing it, they really don't know what they don't know. And that's a problem. That's gonna be an issue for you, because they're gonna be learning on the job, and you're gonna be the one paid for it.
Right.
So I think you need to look for the experience as well as, location and all of that.
I think, Zach, what I think might work well is, Dan emailed this presentation to all of us. That's the same presentation he emailed, right? I could,
You have a booklet.
yeah, I have the booklet, but you emailed it with an,
Did you email it?
an
I did not
attachment.
email the
Oh, yeah,
presentation.
you emailed it to the board.
Maybe.
And I think it had an attachment on it.
Or what?
That's how I got all those copies.
The packet.
That's how you got those packets we just had?
Right, yes, these.
Yeah, that came in the email.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We could probably email that to Southeast Iowa Regional Planning. Zach, can you hear me?
Can.
Okay, we could email that to you, and you can pick out the points of it that are attributable just to construction management in general, in writing that RFQ. Say, oh, you know, we're looking for the following types of services, you know, that a construction manager would perform without anything being, just singling out a single entity.
Zach, I can help you out too if you need to, if you guys wanna have a sit down or something as we move forward.
Yeah, we can do that.
Were you guys okay with that? Okay, you're still okay with that?
Yeah, I like the idea of Brian sitting down there too.
I like the idea of moving forward with this type of RFQ or this type of process right now far better than I like the idea of trying to do something for the engineer yet. I felt like we were ahead, we were a little too far in advance.
I'm much more comfortable with this.
This is a better place to start, and I don't think we're ready for the latter yet, personally, just from what I see here.
So, you guys got anything you'd like to say? You know, we're extremely happy you
Craig, would you shut?
reached out.
Craig. Yeah, this guy's been talking.
Craig,
By the time
what
we
is
get recorded.
We should shut,
Jeez.
Just here to look at it.
Easy, I can't. I like this guy.
Well, I think the board's I know the board's in agreement on this, Zach. Why don't, if you're gonna reach out to Brian or something and see how, adjust that request for RFQ or RFP or whatever you wanna call it, for a construction manager, and, the board will take a look at it. If we like it, we'll go with it, and, quite honestly, the sooner the better.
Okay.
Good.
Yep, I think we're good. Thank you, gentlemen. We
Thank you.
really appreciate that, you reaching out to us and making us aware of the possibility.
We look forward to an opportunity to share it again with you if we have to, so.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming. You guys have a great day. Nice presentation.
It was.
Well, here's the old sales pitch part.